Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to this year's Scale bus fleet update video. So we do have a few new buses, some buses that have been replaced, all kinds of fun stuff to get into. So we'll start off like we did last year. The first bus I'll show you is my CE with the production error on the back, where it does not have black around the warning lights. So that's the first thing you see. It looks normal on the front, but on the back there is no black around the warning lights. So that's pretty cool, just a factory error. The next thing I'll show you is this semi. You can see it's numbered 120. So basically it's a semi truck with a flatbed trailer that I can put the buses on. This bus right here is actually my blank Laidlaw bus. If you guys remember it from last year, it's basically modeled after a brand new unnumbered Laidlaw bus. It has no actual ID number. So yeah, that's pretty cool. But yeah, there it is on the trailer, almost as if it was getting delivered or something like that. And you can see this truck does have a number. It's 120, which I numbered a majority of my trucks in the 100s. Yeah, so let's go ahead and move on to the actual, well, I should say the rest of the fleet. Alright, so the first bus is bus 1, which was in the video last year. It's modeled after Lebanon's bus 1 Lebanon's old bus 1, because we did get rid of it this summer, to the best of my abilities. It's not short like the real bus 1 was. It doesn't have a lift, but it's basically bus 1 as a full-size bus without a lift. The next bus is bus 3. Now the one thing you'll notice here is bus 3, last year's video was out of service. I went ahead and put it back into service with a newer ID number. You know, I think I may have mentioned it last year, but it's the fact that this bus has 4 ways is what's kind of hard for me to try to keep it in service, because Ohio has been requiring 8-way light systems since 1978, so it would not be on the road in this shape. It would have either had amber lights retrofitted or taken out of service. But you can see I did put a new ID number on there. I forget what exactly it was, but it's like 52116. So that way it doesn't seem like it's a really old bus that wouldn't possibly be in service in the early 2000s, since that's when most of this fleet would be modeled for. The next bus is bus 4. I did have bus 4 last year. It's an original white roof CE that I gave a yellow roof's wheels to, because the axles on the original bottom that this bus had were glued in place for some reason, so I just went ahead and gave it a new bottom so that way it could freely roll. Now the next bus is bus 6. Bus 6 is a new addition. I'll pull it out here and show it to you. So bus 6 is a new addition to the fleet. You can see it just says ATA Inc., which is my made-up transportation company stop. And then you will notice that this bus has a Herpa Bluebird stop arm on it. When I got this bus, it had a stop sign, but it broke off on me. Sometimes with the CEs, depending on if they're like brand new in the package, or even sometimes the ones that have been opened will do it. Like if the stop sign never gets opened and it has a weak piece on it, when you go to open it, the sign itself will break right off its hinge. So that's what happened with this bus, so I went ahead and put what I had on it. I actually kind of like the way the Herpa stop sign looks on this. It looks a little bit more realistic. The stop signs on the CEs stick out a little too much, so you know, it doesn't look as good in my opinion, but I don't have enough Herpa stop signs to just redo my entire fleet, so it's just this one. And I don't know, I might consider replacing that stop sign with another stop sign if I end up having an extra from an actual CE or something, so that way it, you know, looks correct. So yeah, that's bus 6. Next 2 buses here are sisters, 7 and 8. Now you will notice on 8 it now has a black hood. I think I've given a few buses black hoods just to kind of put in a little bit of spec variety, because why not? So 8 got its black hood at some point last year. I can't remember when I did it exactly, but it wasn't before the video I filmed last year. 7 is still the same, but like I said, 8 does have the black hood. Next bus is bus 9, which is one of the Siku FS65s I have. I did sell one between this video and the last video. I sold the one that was numbered 13. But I did end up getting another one not too long ago, so we'll see that when we get to it. Next bus is bus 10. Now, bus 10 is an interesting little bus. I know I had it last year's video, so I explained it then. But basically, bus 10 is originally just a shell that is normally put on railroad track wheels to be like a maintenance of way type bus. But you can see it's basically a Wayne. I mean, it's not 100% exact a Wayne body, but for the most part it does look like a Wayne. So it's a very interesting bus. But it's pretty cool to have this, even if it doesn't have an interior or a stop sign or is actually in active use in this HO scale fleet. It's just still cool to see and have with the other buses. Now the next two buses are sisters. And little quick side note here, you will notice that some of the buses aren't completely on the seat. That's because the seats, well, if you couldn't tell, I'm on 45. 45 seats, there are wrinkles in them, so they're not sitting as flat as they did last year on 66. I figured this year I would film it on 45 because why not? But anyways, 11 and 12 are exactly the same. They're both the Washington High School Bluebird Herpa with the white roof and just the bird symbol instead of the bird and the streamer. So really nothing too new there. The next bus is bus 14. 14 is one of the later Herpas with the Promotex wheels. And 14 is a blank bus. As you can see, I've actually got Lebanon City Schools on the side. And then I think on the back it just says stop instead of stop state law. Now the next two buses are technical sisters, 15 and 16. Now, 15 and 16 are modeled after Lebanon's 16 and 50 when it was 15, with the ID numbers and everything. So, I had a bus 16 that was supposed to be modeled after R16 before it was sold off. With like the re-registered ID number and all that stuff, but this 16 has the original ID number, which is 16853, and 50's original was 16854. So nothing too crazy to really. So that's 15 and 16. Next two buses here, we've got 17 and 18. So obviously they're not sisters, but 17 is a white roof original CE. That I'm pretty sure I have it matching up ID number wise, like with some of the other white roof originals that I have. Like, you'll see them as we go on. I'll mention them as we get to them. But I'm pretty sure I do have 17 being sisters, or a sister bus to some of the other CEs. Now 18 is modeled after Lebanon's 18. However, it has the re-registered ID number. I did not do a 16856 version of this, which that would have been 18's original ID number, because when I modeled 18 originally, like this particular model, I didn't have I didn't know what 18's original ID number was at that point, and I didn't have 15 and 16, so I didn't have two other buses numbered with their original IDs. Maybe when R18 gets sold, I might take the re-registered ID number off and put it on there with the original, so that way it's actually modeling the bus when it was new. The one thing though on 18 that 15 and 16 don't have is 18 has the International Diamond, because some of the yellow roofs came with, like in the early production, came with the International Diamond on the hood versus the IC badge. Most of them did come with the IC badge, but there are some, 18 being a good example of this, that came with the diamond, and I actually have quite a few buses with the International Diamond instead of the IC badge. So the next two buses here, we've got 19 and 20. So 19 would be a sister to 11 and 12, and it's a white roof Washington High School bus. And that was in the last video, so there's really not much to say about it. 20 there is a sister to 7 and 8, and then there's also 22 and 23, which you'll see here in a second. So yeah, the next bus there sitting next to it is 21. Now 21 is an interesting bus because 21A has mirrors that are not what you'd typically find on a Herpa. They were custom added. I don't know what they would have come from. You can also see that the owner before me painted the wheels black, so that's a nice touch. And then I put a second stop sign on it, so that way it has a little bit of variation in specs from the other ones. But I think that the second stop sign and the black wheels and the mirrors on it just add a very nice touch to the bus. The back says Stop State Law. Most of the older Herpa Birds that I have Stop State Law on them. Some of the newer ones that I've gotten, like more recently, I just put Stop because Stop is easier to do than Stop State Law. And State Law doesn't actually fit on the whole back of the rear door of the bus, so it kind of looks a little wonky, but at the same time, I also do like the way it looks because it makes it look like an older bus. But with the buses that I was saying that I just put Stop on, those buses, this kind of looks like, oh, this bus had body work, so Stop State Law, or State Law rather, wasn't put on there afterwards because maybe it wasn't required after the body work was done. Now, the next two buses here, we've got 22 and 23. Those are the sister buses that I was talking about, the 20 and 7 and 8. They are the county school district number 4 Herpas, and there's really nothing too crazy about them to actually show, but you can see the two buses right there. Alright, so continuing, we've got bus 24, which is a white roof CE. You can see its sister bus is right there, so 24 and 25. They're identical in their specs, so I put their numbers between the second and third rub rail, Lebanon City Schools, Stop, number on the electrical panel door. Now, 24 and 25 are like some of these buses, not actually modeled after real Lebanon buses. Like I have some of the Bluebirds and some of the first gens numbered and lettered with Lebanon City Schools, but they don't necessarily model a real bus we ever had. That's just something, like if I don't necessarily want to put ATS or something of one of my made-up transportation companies on it, then I'll put Lebanon City Schools, just so it's a little different. Now the next bus is 26, and before I show you this 26, I will make a note. There actually was a 26 before the FS65 here that was not in last year's video. We'll get to it when we get to the retired buses. It's a Bluebird International Herpa that I modeled it to have an accident. And it also has a black hood, much like this one. Now, I will say, you'll notice this bus has painted warning lights. I did not do the painted warning lights on this. It came to me like that from eBay. The black hood I added just so it would have a black hood like the old 26. You can see the ID number there. It's a much older ID. It's 11169, and if you guys know anything about 66, you know that its original ID number was 11135. So I wanted to do an earlier model FS65, because I think all the ones I've ever done in my fleet have been like 2004, 2005 model year FS65s with their ID numbers. But 26, this one they covered up where it said school bus, so I put ATA Inc. Warren Co. on it. And then we've got Stop and 26 on the back. Now this one I had an extra 26, so I put it on the back there behind the last window, so that's kind of different. I did leave space for a stop sign. I was considering using a Herpa stop sign that I had from an out-of-service bus and gluing it on there, but I haven't decided on that yet, so yeah. Now the next two buses here are 28 and 29. Both are modeled after Lebanon buses. They've pretty much been the same for all the videos they've been in. Now, these two buses, as of this school year, were replaced with C2s, so they're not in service anymore. But I'm still going to keep these, obviously, because, you know, I like them, and they're modeled after buses that I never rode either of those buses to school, but I went to school around them, so, you know, they still mean something to me. Now, next bus here is bus 30. Bus 30 is a Bluebird International, which you can see that. I don't know why I told you that, but there was an original 30 that you guys will see when we get to the out-of-service buses that is also a Bluebird International. This 30 is a blank one. It says Lebanon City Schools in kind of a bolded font. Let's see, stop state law on the back. 30, Lebanon City Schools. The next bus is 31. It's one of the CEs that's got a alternative transportation company on it from, you know, my company of made-up companies. So this one says Renegade Transit. It's numbered 31. You'll also notice where I put the number 31 behind the front turn signal there instead of in front of it, like on most of the buses. I like to do tiny little things like that just kind of give a little bit of variety to the actual fleet, you know, so they don't just all look the same. They have something on them that makes them all different. So yeah, and then I think, yeah, on the electrical panel door over there. So moving on, the next bus we have is 32. I believe 32 is also a blank one. Yeah, so 32 also says Lebanon City Schools with bolded font, just for a little bit of difference. Stop state law. Lebanon City Schools 32. Our actual 32 is a 2010 CE, so obviously that's not modeled after a real bus. Okay, so the next two buses are 34 and 37. Now, 34 was replaced with a C2 last school year and was sold off this past summer, so we don't have that anymore. But 34, as most of you know, with as many times as I've said it, I feel like if you watch my videos, you probably know. 34 was 181, and I rode 181, so I won't be getting rid of it. 37 is still in active service, and it's actually the last 2003 that's in service. All of the other first gens are 2002s, and then you have 50 and 81, which are both 2004s. So that's pretty interesting. So 37 was 281, if you guys remember that. I'm sure I've said it plenty of times. Then we've got 40. You'll see it's got the stacked numbering on the hood, which some of our buses had that. It was, the old 39 had it, and of course 40 had it, or has it rather, because 40 is still in service. The one notable thing about 40 right now, last school year, it had its back bumper torn off. Long story. And they put a second gen bumper on it. So that was, it looks interesting. I've seen it done. I kind of like the way it looks with the bus, but I don't know if I would go out of my way to put one on the back of a bus like that. But, I mean, I think it looks nice. It doesn't look horrible. Let's see, moving on, we've got 41 and 42. So, both of these buses, let's see, 42 has Unified School District on it, so it doesn't say Lebanon City Schools. But 41 says Lebanon City Schools because it's a blank one. Now, 41 I did model after our old 41. I probably mentioned that in last year's video, but we're going to hear it again. 42 isn't modeled after anything real. Let's see, next three buses we got here. So we've got 43, that's modeled after a Lebanon bus. Then 45. 45 is one of my made-up transportation buses. It's got ATA Inc. Warren Co. on it, just like 26 did. I'm pretty sure I had 45 last year. I can't remember. Then the white roof there is 47. So this is a Walters remake, if you couldn't tell by the warning light paint. The old 47 was a Bluebird International that I had sold last year. And then when I got this, I actually got it in a lot. and I did an unboxing of it. I'll card it in so you guys can go watch it if you want to. But basically, 47 is another bus that it says, you know, it's got 47 Lebanon City Schools, made up ID number, all that kind of stuff, but it's not a real Lebanon bus. We never had a 47 numbered, we never had a CE numbered 47. You can see the ID number. And then the one thing that this bus has that none of the others have is 47 next to the IC logo. I generally don't like it when schools put the number right under the IC logo like that. But I figured I'd try it out there since, you know, I had an extra number when I was numbering it and just kind of went with it. Next bus we got there is 49, the Bluebird, not the CE. It's one of the variations, Scott's Bus Lines Limited, and got the little pennant. So that's pretty cool. Right here we've got 50. You guys have all seen it. I've had it for quite some time. The one thing that did change is I redid the side lettering. I redid the number, spaced out Lebanon City Schools so it looks a little bit more accurate. I think I redid the side lettering here too. But I redid the numbers on both sides so it looked a little bit better. When I originally numbered this bus, it was when I was first numbering them with labels, so it looked, you know, my work is improved, so I figured I'd redo it. And I did not give this bus its new ID number because I liked it better with 07306, and I personally, with how I'm modeling my HO fleet, I don't really want Q series IDs because the way it would look is this fleet has got buses in the 5000s, buses in the 1000s, and then some buses in the zeros like 07306, and then you jump all the way from an ID that would have been registered in like 2010, 2009 maybe, all the way to a Q series, which the first Q series was in 13, so I guess if you did early Q series, it could probably work. But I don't want that to be there. I don't want that to be that big of a gap. If anyone ever came out with like an HO scale 2nd gen or something that was newer that I could update things, then yeah, I'd go a little bit higher with the ID numbers. But for right now, I'm kind of staying within early 2000s, so that way, like my modeling of this fleet doesn't look weird or seem strange. Which, I know at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. But to me, since I'm modeling it, you know, I kind of want it to stay that way. So, moving on, we've got 51 right here, which it has a custom lettering job on it. And it says Stop State Law. I've had 51 for a while there. This next bus is 56. Now, I did not have 56 last year. 56 is pretty cool, and let me show you why. So 56 is a Washington High School bus, but you'll notice it does not have a white roof and it has a streamer. So I did not know they made Washington High School buses without white roofs and with the streamer. This is the only one I've ever seen though, so I don't know if they made, I'm assuming they made more than one, but this is the only one I've ever seen pop up on eBay. And of course I had to get that for my fleet because it's pretty cool. It's like you have the white roofs and then you have that one. So it's kind of like a variation within, if you were modeling Washington High School, wherever that may be, you've got your white roofs and then you have this yellow roof. So it's kind of like, oh, that's from a different batch or whatever. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. There's the back. It just says stop. And then 56. Ironically, I did have a 56 a few years ago that was a 1st gen. So it's like there are buses within this fleet that some of the numbers were newer than what they are now. So it's kind of like a reverse replacement system. But yeah. Next two buses we've got 58 and 59. Those are both new buses. So 59 replaced the S-Series 59, which we'll get to that in a few seconds. And it's basically, I'm pretty sure I put Lebanon City Schools on 59 because that's what the Bluebird had. Yeah, so Lebanon City Schools 59. You can see it has a hood number on it. And then it's pretty much the same on the other side. Now 58, on the other hand, while these both, I think I gave them consecutive IDs. Yeah, I mean, they're not one after the other, but they're within the same series. So 58 is pretty much the same bus. It also says Lebanon City Schools, and the specs are the same. The only thing on this is the stop sign is a little weird. I think it broke, and I don't know if it's been glued or what, but it sticks out like a Herpa, and it opens fine, and it just, I mean, it doesn't break, but it doesn't go all the way in like it should, so you can see it's kind of wonky. It hasn't broken yet, so I haven't really worried about replacing the stop sign, so that's why it's like that. This next bus is 66, which I had 66 for the previous update, so there's really nothing to show. It's got the numbers stacked on the hood, just like 40, and this bus is not actually modeled after anything real, so yeah. Alright, so the next bus we've got is 67. Now, 67 is a new bus since the last update video. This is just a white roof. It's pretty much spec'd exactly like the 66 we just got done looking at, except that the number is not stacked on the hood. I'm pretty sure I made the IDs match. Yeah, this one is 166.51 and 66 is 166.50. But it's got a number between the second and third rub rail, a number behind the IC logo, Lebanon City Schools. So the specs are pretty much the same. Nothing too major there. But it is a new addition. And then after 67, we've got 69 and 70, which are both identical to each other. They have... they're the blank versions of the Washington High School bus, which also is not a very common variation. I've seen these two and maybe one or two others pop up on eBay. So, still pretty cool. They say stop state law, and then Lebanon City Schools, obviously, but again, these aren't actually modeled after real Lebanon buses. They're just kind of there. Next two buses are 71 and 72. Two more sisters. That are kind of within the same batch as 67, 66, and 17. I'm pretty sure I made all their ID numbers match. You can see that 72 there is 166.05, and then 71 is 166.06. So their specs are exactly identical to 66 and 67. But you can pretty much see that they're pretty much the same spec-wise as 66 and 67. Lebanon City Schools, not actually modeled after a 71 or 72 that we ever had. Now, 71 technically replaced a white roof Bluebird International I used to have a few years ago. I sold it. So that's kind of a replacement. Next bus we got there is 78. Now, 78 has had a black hood since the last video, but it's my only white roof Herpa with a black hood, so you can kind of see what it looks like there. The next bus there is 79 and then 81, which are both sisters, and they're both modeled after real Lebanon buses. Now, 79 was retired this last year and replaced with a C2, so it's not in service anymore, but I'm not going to get rid of this 79 because, you know, I did actually ride the old 79 and I do want to have a model of it. 81 is still going, so that's cool. Next bus is 84. So 84, as you guys know, is another Lebanon modeled bus. It was modeled after my first bus I rode in Lebanon. So, yeah. Next bus is 91. Now, 91 was sold off this summer, so we don't actually have 91 anymore, and I don't think I ever made a note of it in a video, but 91 came from the same school district as 66 before we had it, Johnstown Monroe Local School District in Licking County. So I'm pretty sure, because 91 was 9 for them, I'm pretty sure that 66 was probably 6, so those two probably parked next to each other for a while. So that's 91. Next bus is 171. Now 171 is modeled after 28 before it was 28. Back when I was in 3rd, 4th grade up until 5th grade, that's what that bus was numbered, was 171. Now, I'm not really sure why we had a 171, a 181, and a 281. The only thing that I can think is because, now I don't know if this really would apply to 71, because I don't think 71, the Bluebird International we had, was 71 at this point. It was still an MRDD bus, so I don't know what number it had. I think it was like 7 or something. My only thought for 181 and 281 is the fact that we already had 81, and they were like, we'll just put a 1 and a 2 in front of these, so that they're like 81, but it's 181 and 281. So that way there were not 3 bus 81s, you know, in that aspect of just being numbered 81. But that's just a theory. I don't actually know if it's true. Next bus is 181, which that was modeled after 34 before it was 34. It's modeled after the bus I rode. Now, the one thing that 181 and 171 and 281 didn't have was 181 under the stop sign. 171 and 281 had their numbers on their electrical panel doors. Now, and the one thing I will say is 171 and 181 were sister buses, but 281 was completely separate. They weren't sisters at all. And then we have 281, which is 37 before it was 37. So, yeah. Alright, so moving on, we've got the out-of-service buses. Now, this is a bus that I recently retired. Last year, this would have been in the in-service buses. So this is bus 5. It just says ATS on the side. It was the first gen that I get, well, it's actually the second, but it was the first one that was like an in-service first gen, we'll say, to get a black hood. I mean, I like the way it came out, the black hood. It actually doesn't look too bad. But this is one of my early first gens that I had before I really was into collecting them. So it's definitely seen a lot of stuff. This was 16 back in the day. But I think, I'm trying to remember, yeah, once 16, like our old 16 came back and was going to get sold because of the rust, I renumbered this to 5. And it's been 5 ever since, and it's also had 045 above its door from where the IC logo pretty much came off. And I covered it. So, and it's got a rooftop number, which none of the other HO scale buses have. But I retired it. You can see I blacked out the ID as well. But I retired it because it's just an older one. I don't know. I just felt like doing it, honestly. Doesn't mean it couldn't go back into service, but for now it's probably going to stay out of service. And if I start selling again, it'll probably get sold. The next bus is the 26 that I bought and had for a little bit. So for a while it had a yellow roof, or a yellow hood. Then I gave it a black hood, and then when I figured out that the front axle was pretty bent, I decided to model it after just a wreck. So basically you can see where it kind of looks like it rolled over. The body's a little smushed. The windshield broke in two and is inside of it right now. But I don't know, can you tell? You can probably tell looking down the side of it that it's got some damage to it. Not to mention the broken post there. But you can see it bends. I actually cracked this so hard that the roof, I don't know if you can see that crack, but there's a crack right in the roof, and this, if you push down on it, like it separates. You can kind of see it. But anyways, I took the stop sign off. It's in my parts bin of little HO parts that I could use. Now on this one, that is marker on the actual plastic, because obviously this bus isn't good for anything else now, so I figured I would mark it out. This also just says stop. So yeah, that's the old 26 that the FS65 replaced. Here is 59. Now 59, funny story, I had actually put it on eBay and was trying to sell it in a lot of, I think, 2 buses. And during my move last year, somehow, some way, the axle came apart, the back axle, and I couldn't find the wheel that came off the actual axle, so I ended up having to send another bus in its place because this one was incomplete. So it's just a parts bus right now. Basically, if I really wanted to, I have the parts that I could fix this, put an axle back on it, give it a stop sign, and put it back into service. But I don't really want to. That front axle is it's a little bigger than it needs to be. But I don't really want to, so I'm not going to. So it's just out of service. I mean, I don't really have any plans for it. It's probably just going to stay around and be a set dresser and parts if I need it. Next one's 24. Nothing's really changed with that. There's 30. I know last year I forgot to bring the hood, so there it is with the hood. 30 there was my very first Herpa Bluebird. And it's also been modeled like it was in an accident. You can tell like it's missing some parts there. There's the Bluebird that Adam sent me, that it had its own little accident when they tried to send it to him in a bubble mailer. Don't send delicate things in a bubble mailer, people. If that's the only piece of advice I can give you, it's good advice. Take it. Just don't do it. It's just the wrong thing to do. And then the next bus isn't really out of service and in service. It's just something that I use to experiment mods on. Like you can kind of see where I try to do a lighted sign type look. I did the black hood thing on this first. Let's see, what else did I do on this? I did the black door frames, which, I don't know, it doesn't really look all that good to me, so that's why I haven't done it on anything else. And that's why I have this. I wanted to try it out. This bus I actually got brand new, it was missing its mirror, so that's the main reason why it's just being used for those purposes, because it was broken when I got it anyways, so I figured I'd just use it for that. Alright, moving on. So now we're going to look at the multicolored Herpas that I have, and then the two other first gens I've got sitting off screen right now. So the first one is this Bluebird. Well, obviously it's a Bluebird, but it's the blue Helping Hands bus. I'm sure most of you guys have seen that one. Next one is the Maintenance of Way bus. That's in a gray color with red seats. The only one to have the red seats in it. There's the Peace and Love bus. That's got the Peace and Love on the roof, but it's a hippie bus. U.S. Army bus, prison bus, search and rescue bus, church bus, and then a camp bus. And then right there we've got a repainted first gen that's been painted blue. That was originally my 79 model. That was supposed to be a 79, but it was a Walters remake, so it really didn't work because it had a white roof. And then there's the very first gen I ever had. It's definitely seen better days, we'll say that. So yeah, that's all the buses. We'll go ahead and take a look at my service trucks and cars and stuff like that. Alright, so we'll start out with the cars. Got a little Mercedes, T-Bird, Ford Taurus, some Chevy Caprices. One's a police car, one's a taxi. My original intention for the taxi was to make it up like a school transportation vehicle, but I ended up not being able to get the yellow cab co and the number off. There's another Taurus. Got a Highway Patrol, Ohio Highway Patrol Ford Crown Vic. Another Caprice, another Crown Vic, another Caprice. The Chrysler Voyager, which this one you can see it says ATS. It's done up like a school transportation van. Last year I had a number on it. It was number 6. But I then decided this year not to do a number because I don't really care for a van being numbered within a fleet of buses, so I changed that. Got a Plymouth Fury police car, and then the Cadillac Hearse taxi. Moving on to the trucks, we've got a 4000 series single axle dump truck here in green. There's my Durastar Tow Truck, one of my very first HO scale vehicles. Got a Durastar crew cab dump truck. It's got a number on it, it's 106. This is 105. I never numbered the green one. I don't know if I will or not. Next one we got there is a Workstar. See, this Workstar was originally an electrical truck. but I took the boom off and kind of made it a parts carrier type thing, which I'll show you what I mean. It's got a back axle in it. That's the axle off of the old 59. I numbered this one 109. You can see, just it fits the role as being a parts truck, because it's got all the toolboxes on the back there, and then just a place where you can walk and put things, and little lights, and it's yellow, and it's just got a tow hook, all the little details that, you know, it works being a parts truck. Next vehicle here is another Workstar. This one is a Seagrave fire truck variation, so that's pretty cool. Then we've got the International Durastar International box truck. That's kind of like a parts truck of sorts. You know me, couldn't pass up International branded box truck. Next two trucks are Western Star Tow Trucks that are actually made by Matchbox in their real working rigs line. So these trucks actually scale pretty well with the CEs and the Herpas when it comes to being a tow truck, because obviously this little red tow truck would not be able to tow a bus, but these actually look pretty good with the buses. So that's the only reason I use them. I'm pretty OCD with my scales, and those are the only real working rigs that I will use with my HO scale buses, because everything else just seems to be a little too much out of scale for me. But these actually don't look too bad with the trucks and the buses, so I don't care to use them. Alright, and the last three trucks we've got are my U-Haul trucks. Got my 4000 series U-Haul, and then my two S-series U-Haul trucks. Now the S-series U-Haul trucks are made by Herpa, and what I like about these is that their back doors actually open. So that's a level of detail that the 4000 series truck does not have. Alright guys, so that's it for this year's HO scale bus update video, or HO scale fleet update I should say. I hope you enjoyed this video. A lot of new additions, some buses with random modifications I did over the last year, so plenty of cool things in this video. So let me know what you think. Thank you guys for watching, and yeah,